Hi, today we're discussing experimental control and single case research. The article we're using to guide our discussion was written by Rob Horner and colleagues and published in Exceptional Children in 2005. Single case research is particularly useful for examining data patterns at the individual level, which is similar to traditional case studies or A-B designs. However, single case research designs are experimentally rigorous. In fact, the purpose of single case research designs are to document causal or functional relations between an independent and a dependent variable. In special education, the independent variables are typically environmental conditions, different environmental conditions, or different interventions. And dependent variables are typically behaviors that we want to increase, such as academic responding or social behaviors, or behaviors that we want to decrease, such as problem behaviors. Functional relations in general require that the research is carried out with sufficient experimental rigor, and we have increased confidence in our results if the experiment meets contemporary design standards. We have multiple options for single case design, for identifying single case design standards. For instance, the What Works Clearinghouse has produced a set of single case research design standards, which are similar to the design standards that we find in many of the single case research design textbooks in special education. Functional relations also require that there are sufficient and clear documentation that the implementation of the independent variable resulted in changes in the dependent variable. In fact, we need to see 3 demonstrations of this behavior change or this effect at 3 different points in time. That is, we need to see that the dependent variable changed with the introduction of the independent variable at 3 different points in time. Single case research uses within case comparisons across conditions with at least 3 potential replications of the effect or the behavior change for 1 or more participants to minimize threats to internal validity. Such threats include history and maturation. This is an example of an A-B design, also known as a withdrawal design. In this graph, we see that the baseline and the intervention are alternated, and we have challenging behavior and spoken words. We can see that with the introduction of the intervention, challenging behaviors decrease. With the reintroduction of the baseline, challenging behaviors go back to levels seen in the initial baseline condition. And with the reintroduction of the intervention, we see that challenging behaviors reduce again to levels similar in that we saw in the first intervention condition. As such, we have 3 opportunities to demonstrate behavior change and have at 3 different points in time, and thus have a functional relation between the intervention and challenging behaviors. If we look at spoken words, we see that spoken words immediately increased with the introduction of the intervention, decreased with the withdrawal of the intervention or the reintroduction of the baseline condition, and increased again in a similar pattern with the reintroduction of the intervention. Thus, we have 3 demonstrations of behavior change at 3 different points in time and can conclude that there's a functional relation between the intervention and spoken words. This graph depicts another design option within single case research, and this is called the multiple baseline design. In this design, we have 3 opportunities to demonstrate behavior change at 3 different points in time. However, instead of introducing and withdrawing the intervention, we stagger the introduction of the intervention across 3 different participants, and thus are able to show that the dependent variable changed only when we introduced the independent variable across 3 different participants at 3 different points in time. Thus, single case research includes a number of features that make them particularly well suited to research in special education. There are practical and feasible design options that allow us to establish experimental control and identify what works for whom under what conditions. They also allow for continuous measurement and close contact with the data because we are making formative decisions using visual analysis regarding the introduction of the independent variable over time, based on data patterns seen with the dependent variable. They also allow us to identify non-responders and responders and give us information on patterns of behavior. Thus, single-case research designs are well suited to identify what works for whom under what conditions and for use in applied settings in special education.